Busy.
Good afternoon, members of the committee. We have a quorum. I would ask that we select our co-chairs for this term of City Council. May I hear nominations for the City of Hamilton's co-chair for this committee?
Sure. I nominate Judy Partridge.
Councillor.
Second on that?
I second one.
Thank you.
All in favor?
We're going to turn these over to you now, okay?
Yes.
All right, this is the official. So, Mr. Clerk, any changes to the agenda, sir?
Yes, we have a number of changes to today's agenda. They're all added discussion items. I'd like to also acknowledge an error on the agenda. There's a misprint in the numbering. We jump right from number 5 to number 7. So please consider that in the changes today. So it's added discussion items at item 6. 6.6, regional transit connections, Waterdown, Hamilton, Burlington, no copy. 6.7, Sarcoa, entertainment noise issues. 6.8, Waterdown road expansion. 6.9, meeting dates for 2015, all of them being no copy items. That is all the changes to today's agenda, Ms. Chair.
Okay.
So far.
So far. We're just getting started. Yes, thank you, Mr. Clerk. Although, just to clarify, at the very beginning when you started, you said co-chairs.
Yes,
So, who is the other co-chair?
it would be appropriate at this time to hold a vote for the co-chair from the City of Burlington side of the
All
committee.
right, may I have a nomination for the City of Burlington for co-chair, please?
I nominate Councillor Rick Craven as co-chair.
I'll second that. Since the label's already printed, we don't have to do that again.
All in favor?
Aye.
That is carried, and we don't need to print a new sign for Councillor Craven, but just
Thank you.
for me. There you go. A motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Move it.
Councillor Craven, Mayor Eisenberger, all in favor? That is carried. Any declarations of interest? I'm hoping everyone's interested. No conflicts. Okay, thank you. And motion to approve the minutes from the previous meeting. Mayor Goldring.
So moved.
All right, thank you. And
I wasn't here, so I can't.
you weren't here and I wasn't here, so Councillor Craven, all in favor? And that is carried, thank you. And delegation requests? We have none? We do have delegations.
Today's delegation request, because it relates to an item, is filed with the item, not as a separate delegation. It's related to today's agenda.
Okay, thank you for that. Now we have item 6.1 before us respecting the energy from waste facility, Pier 15 in the Port of Hamilton. And any discussion on this item? I'm anticipating there will be.
So here's the issue from our side.
Okay.
As soon as news of this began to emerge on the Burlington side of the harbor last fall, we started getting emails and phone calls from people saying what a terrible and awful thing this is. And we're looking for your guidance as to how we should put this in perspective for our constituents and how we should respond.
Okay. Chris, would you like to
Sure.
start off?
So there's, as you can expect, there's been a rather lengthy debate and conversation about this particular use, and where the City of Hamilton is right now is we're requesting a full environmental assessment of this proposal. Additionally, we're looking for health effects impact assessment work to be conducted so that it's clear in everyone's mind as to what the physical or health consequences of this undertaking are. I think it's safe to say that council has a number of concerns about this use moving forward. Even though there may be economic benefits in having it, there is a concern about the material that's coming into our community and the perceptions that go with the energy from waste being maybe somewhat problematic as it relates to some of our own harbor development that we're moving ahead with. Certainly West Harbor is slated for more recreational, residential, commercial development. So I know that was an issue that was raised. So in terms of the City of Burlington and the comment, there's, I mean, you can certainly report what Hamilton's doing about the matter, but beyond that, really, ultimately, I think it will end up in the Minister of Environment and Climate Change's hands to decide what it is exactly we're going to do, or they're going to do to deal with this matter.
Could you clarify for me, is this proposal actually on the Port Authority lands? So there's a question of jurisdiction too.
Well, I mean, there's a, it still has to apply to, or conform with provincial federal legislation, so it's, there's not much doubt in terms of the environmental hurdles it has to clear before it can be approved.
And may I ask, who would be the contact on the Hamilton side should we have more questions that we want to proceed to this?
Probably the best thing would be through me, and because it is touching health, it's touching legal, it's touching planning, public works, I think I can certainly, depending on what the nature of the question is, make sure it gets to the right person.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Mr. Mayor?
So just to add to that, I mean, we've got a fulsome amount of reporting that's been done on this that we should share with your council and yourselves and your staff. I would also, highly recommend that you sit down with either Port Authority or Port Fuels if there's a kind of additional information that's desired. Our building commissioner actually deemed the zoning to be appropriate for that use in that location just recently, based on their actual use. And I think there's a lot of information to be had there in terms of what Port Fuels might say about their process and their technology. So it's moving forward. Ultimately, I think, as Chris pointed out, it'll be an MOE decision on their certificate of approval. And but there, as it stands right now, there isn't a jurisdictional issue in terms of zoning use. The irony is that our future official plan, or our current official plan, which hasn't had that zoning category updated, would not allow that use in that location. But the zoning hasn't been updated, and zoning is paramount, or is the guiding tool in terms of our building commissioner. So they deemed it to be appropriate in terms of zoning.
But this is not incineration, right?
No. It's gas plasma, which is a different process. So we're not talking about burning per se, but they are talking about energy from waste. So a gas that they would produce would actually produce an energy through some other turbine operating process that they would use. And apparently the other outcome is, as I understand it, is the other residue out of this is an aggregate, apparently a benign aggregate that can be used as fill or road surface. So they've got two processes that are actually combining. So those two processes, neither one of them are unique in the world, but they're doing both of them at the same time. That is relative.
I was going to ask too, as you mentioned, Fred, this technology is used worldwide. Is there any local examples that you've been referred to?
Local in terms of individual, I think in North America we're way behind in terms of that utilizing that technology. I think both of those technologies have been around for hundreds of years, as I understand it. So individually, separately, they're tested. They're well used in Europe. Norway, Switzerland, I think independently they've used those two techniques, but the fact that they're doing it together is I wouldn't say revolutionary, but certainly new. They had a pilot test in the UK, very small kind of sampling, and I don't know the end result of that is, but that's the only location I'm aware of where this company has actually pilot tested their technology in a small kind of way. So there are some results that come out of that.
Good.
If I can turn the chair over to Councillor Craven, I just want to make some comments. There are several councillors around the table who are very concerned about this particular technology. As the Mayor quite correctly said, there is a very small test facility in the UK, the results of which they're not sharing publicly. But we are concerned that it is unproven technology, and we do want to see the due diligence, and before we bring it into that area, which is already challenged in terms of the airshed in the communities that we're dealing with. So just to give you some assurance that we are paying very close attention to this, and it is being discussed at council.
Great.
All right. I'll take the chair back. Anybody else around the table? Any comments? Okay, may I have a motion to receive the item, or what is the desire of the committee in terms of dealing with this? We can either receive it, or we can move a motion of some sort on it. I'll leave that up to the committee.
Well, I think sorry, Mr. Chair.
No, go ahead.
I think for our side, we're content to be able to know that we can speak to the city manager about this and receive regular updates into this. And of course, we'll be monitoring the media. But in response to our constituents, we want to make sure we get it right. So that's why we need to make sure that we're able to contact you when we need clarity on this. So I'm quite happy with that.
Okay, so we'll just receive the item then, moved by Mayor Eisenberger, seconded by Mayor Goldring. Okay, all in favor? And that is carried. All right, now we have the item respecting the 2015 Bay Area Economic Summit before us. Do we have any discussion on it? Any questions? Just to clarify, are we actually getting a presentation or?
Yes.
Okay, all right, so why don't we hear that first? Welcome, Keenan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to stand over here if this is okay with you. Mayors Goldring, Eisenberger, committee members, thank you very much for this opportunity to speak with you today. My name is Keenan Loomis. I'm President and CEO of the Hamilton Chamber of Commerce. I'm joined today by Keith Hoey, President and CEO of the Burlington Chamber of Commerce, and a couple other members of our team. We have Richard Allen here, Matt Petrocelli, and then Josefa Saeed is with the Chamber as well. So I just want to go back to why we are here. I'm here today speaking to you. As you may know, the Hamilton Chamber of Commerce has produced 7 economic summits. This will be the 8th. There is always a challenge to make sure that the content is fresh and topical, and that we entice people to come each and every year to this event. So at the end of last year's event, my intention was to expand the scope of the event to be a more regional conversation in nature. And as luck would have it, in September of last year, I received a call from Chris Murray saying that he received direction from this committee to explore the possibility of doing a regional summit. Since we're in the business of that, I offered yes. Since it was aligned with my goals, I said for sure, no problem. And just before Christmas, I talked to Keith, and we came together and had a good understanding of how we are to actually do this. He received approval from his board, and I did as well. And so we really hit the ground running in January this year in planning out this summit. We have first sought the advice and input of the economic development departments. What we found interesting was this year both of the economic development departments are creating their next 5-year plans. And so we thought this was a really good opportunity, in fact, for the ECDEV departments to receive the input of the 400 key leaders in this community into their 5-year strategies. So that's one of the goals, the outcomes of this year. A second goal is just to facilitate interaction between the two communities. We know that there are a number of people that do straddle both communities, but it's actually not as tightly integrated as you would expect. And we're finding that out just through this process, and so there's a lot we can do in that regard. So I look forward to the day in particular to help us achieve that. And then one of the final outputs from this is intended to be a white paper that will focus on the key joint interests that our communities have, and be a vehicle through which we can expand our influence at both the provincial and the federal levels as well. So this is the only chance really since my conversation with Chris and before the summit on June the 2nd at the RBG to seek your input, and I hope that you will be pleased with the agenda that we've created for you today that we're able to share. Now, this is still being developed, and there's a lot of work to be done between now and then, but we do have a fairly good and detailed outline of how the day is going to go. And unless there are any questions, I will jump into that. That's on your second page. So we'll start with Mark Runciman, the CEO of RBG, welcoming everybody. The intention is for Keith and I to play the role as hosts or co-moderators for the day. We have worked with the mayor's offices on both ends of the bay to involve the mayors as honorary co-chairs, and worked on their parts throughout the day as well. We have Paul Burton, Editor-in-Chief, moderating the essentially what is the very first session, which is a sit-down with the mayors. We then have the Ontario Chamber of Commerce, and Helmut Pastrick is the Chief Economist of Central Credit One. The OCC and Central Credit One did a number of economic forecasts and reports at the beginning of this year that we co-branded on and released in January. And the economic forecast and report was...
Does the GO train go through here now? Got a new stop here somewhere? What happened?
Didn't you get the announcement?
Apparently I missed it. LRT just landed. Yeah.
You forgot to ask for tracks.
We'll update the agenda. So as I was saying, the Credit Union One and the OCC and the Hamilton Chamber, and I think the Burlington Chamber as well provided some input into this, but we released this economic report in January, and we thought that it was a good spot to start to kind of lay the context, if you will. It looks at the report that they did looks at the Hamilton CMA, which as we know is Hamilton, Burlington, and Grimsby, though we're really not talking about Grimsby within this Bay Area Economic Summit. It's a very, very small chamber, and so they haven't been involved. We then get into, we have the two general managers of the two economic development departments after that contact setter, and then after that we will break out into the first of three main breakout sessions. We have in January. Once we decided we're going forward with this, we reached out to all of the institutions that were involved in last year's Economic Summit. So you'll see that this is on the back of your personal invitation here. So the St. Joe's and Hamilton Health Sciences are big supporters of this event. So there will be a featured breakout session at 10 a.m. Having to do with life sciences. And there will also be some targeted sessions happening at the same time as that. We have the entire RBG, by the way, so we will be using the entire building. Then we get into, we have the Port Authority and the airport also investing in this summit. So the second featured breakout session is on people and goods movement just before lunch. Again, other targeted sessions happening at the same time. We will then break for lunch. We're still working on the agenda for that afternoon, or for that lunch, and then we'll get back into the programming in the afternoon. We have Master Mohawk and Redeemer also very invested in this event, and so the third and final breakout session will be on education and training, while other targeted sessions are happening. And then at the end, it's kind of a come back together, reports out from each of the various targeted sessions, again to the economic development departments, and with a couple regional voices at the end helping us bring closure to the day and helping us understand what we can do with what we've created during the day and how we can move forward with that. And then we will have a reception thereafter. So again, I invite your inputs, any questions that you may have. We have a little bit more than a month to go on the event. We have it in the calendars of, we believe, hopefully, the key leaders in this community. We already have a number of them registering. We have Ron Foxcroft setting to, he's coming. He's going to be bringing Senator David Braley, actually, and Braley will be joining us for lunch, and we'll be staying for the afternoon. And as you can see, we have a lot of other key leaders in the community also involved. I would invite, Councilor Partridge as chair of this committee, I would invite you at some point. We have a lot of breaks in here. They're not evident on your agenda, but we will build a lot of opportunities for people such as yourself to address the community of leadership as well, especially again because the request emanated from this particular committee. And of course we have a big promo and PR push coming over the last month. The key for me now is not just a refinement of the agenda, but again ensuring that we get the key 400 people in the Hamilton Burlington leadership communities there for that day. And so that's where I ask your help. I mean, we have, you know, our own networks, and I can identify a number of people that I know need to be there, but I need your help as well in doing that.
Okay, any questions for Keenan? Okay, well, I have a couple, so
Sure.
I will turn the chair over to Councillor Craven. So Keenan, you and I have had a conversation about this summit and about last year's summit and many before, and as you know, myself and actually Brian Kelly, we were quite involved in previous summits. So I don't see a lot of women on the agenda. In fact, I see one, Denise Doyle. So just like to make a comment about that. I really think we need to find a way to have women more involved. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to say something, but you know, we do have some key business leaders in the community that are women, particularly on the, well, both on Hamilton side, but on Burlington side, I can already think of a couple. So I just want to make that point. Perhaps you can speak to that.
The point is made. We will do our best. We always do our best. Certainly when you look at the leaders of the organizations that are invested in the community, they aren't headed by women, and so we're seeking to, when we give the profile and the opportunity for these institutions, the opportunities for the CEO, the leader of that community institution to be the speaker, but we will do our best, certainly. I know that Vasuda Seth, my board chair, will be on the agenda. We have Sivan Pilvetsian, who's the leader of Civic Action, also involved, and we are definitely doing our best to make sure that we have the right amount of gender balance.
Okay, and thank you. I appreciate that in past summits. And we've had them on the Hamilton side, so I'm not sure whether you folks had attended, but we did have a number of women who were always involved and on the panels and taking a key role. So I would not only encourage, but I would suggest that next year I'd like to see that changed and addressed more thoroughly, okay? The only other comment I have is actually a question for you. How are you reaching out to the other chambers? In Hamilton, I know Burlington has the Burlington Chamber, Hamilton has the Hamilton Chamber, but we also have the Flamborough Chamber and the Stony Creek Chamber, and they're both independent chambers and very strong organizations. So could you just give me some assurances? You're reaching out to them. Are they going to be involved?
Yes, Aaron has been invited to the chamber, to the event. He will be there, as far as I know, it's in his calendar.
Good.
And we are asking him to lead one of the targeted sessions as well. A request has gone out to the Stony Creek Chamber as well. See if them.
Excellent, excellent. I'd be very pleased to see them involved in the panels as well. Okay, I'll take the chair back. Any other questions, comments? All right, thank you very much,
All
Keenan.
right, thank you for
Appreciate
the
it.
opportunity. I have a board meeting at 3, so I apologize. I'm not going to be able to stay for the entire.
Well, that's not a problem at all. Okay, and so can I have a motion to receive Keenan's delegation, Mayor Goldring and Councillor Craig? All in favor? That is carried. Okay, so next we have, moving on to the next item. So we'll move on to item 6.3, respecting an update on the lift bridge. Does anyone want to start that? Yes, Chris, go ahead, please.
To you, Chairman. The ball is effectively in the federal government's court right now to be issuing a letter to our respective councils, making clear what the intent is, which is to basically download, for lack of a better word, a piece of infrastructure that the federal government does not see itself sustaining into the distant future. And so that correspondence is supposed to go to the respective councils and include in it means by which to compensate the local municipalities for taking on the responsibility. So providing us with some kind of clear indication of what comes with the bridge. And then our advice to them was, at least at that point, we would have direction from our respective councils to negotiate or not negotiate with the federal government. So that message, I think, was provided loud and clear when Jeff was here, And Scott as well, I think, carried the ball to make sure that it was clear. And so we have not committed ourselves to anything but a conversation which has gone on now for a couple of years. And so really, at this point, it's up to them to decide exactly what it is they want to communicate.
Okay, any questions? No?
Wait and see.
More of the same? Thanks very much, Chris, appreciate that. So just a motion to receive the item. Mayor Eisenberger and Councillor Craven, all in favor? That's carried. And so now we'll move on to 6.4, which is an update on the Pan Am Games.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Welcome, Greg. Nice
Pleasure to
see
be
you.
here. It's always a pleasure to talk about the games.
Right.
Mayor Eisenberger, Mayor Goldring. Hard to believe, 80 days until the games. It seems like yesterday I was in the mayor's office. That was almost 8 years ago, where the idea of the Pan Am Games came to fruition. We're only 60 days away from the start of the torch relay, so things are starting to really heat up and get very excited. As you know, 41 countries, 7,500 athletes. There'll be over 25,000 volunteers engaged with the games. These are the largest multi-sport games ever in our country, bigger than Vancouver Olympics. It was the largest recruitment and call for volunteers in the history of our nation. We have about 4,000 volunteers registered right now from the Hamilton-Burlington area, which is really a testament to our volunteer spirit. In our community, we're quite proud of that. Pan Am tickets are back on sale this week. We anticipate by the end of the week that the gold medal weekend will be sold out. The other thing interesting, this week's a big week because on Friday, it is the draw. When the draw takes place, a full schedule will come out. A lot of people in the public are waiting to see, when does Canada play? When does Argentina play? When does Mexico, Brazil play? Colombia, etc. So we'll know that by the end of the week. I'm sure the Spectator will do a big story on who's playing and when they are playing. Very soon, the torch relay test event will take place. On May 2nd, Cable 14 will have an open house in which we'll have a live taping of our new show called Kick It Up. It's been promoting the games over the last few months and will continue to do so. That event is open to the public. We're working with Hamilton District Soccer. There's a big soccer event in which Burlington will be participating, Hamilton and teams from across the province on May 9th. We'll probably get some good media coverage there. May 21st, we're having an Aboriginal Festival at the new stadium. We're inviting all the local schools in the precinct to participate. And of course, that night, we're hosting the Building Momentum neighborhood event that will take place from 3 to 6. That too is open to the public. Great opportunity for our community because on May 29th, of course, Canada will play England. It provides a little bit of a test event. Hopefully we'll sell out the stadium as we cheer on our Canadian team preparing for the FIFA World Cup. In June, Toronto 2015 will come into the stadium. That's when Games Overlay will start. The only exception to Games Overlay, June 8th, our Hamilton Tiger Cats play the Ottawa Rough Riders. We hope to do some cross-promotion around what will happen during the Pan Am Games. During June, Overlay continues, volunteer work continues, workforce games time training will take place. So all the volunteers from this community in Burlington will then have the opportunity to be trained on site during that Games Overlay period. Big day, June 12th, is Pan Am Play Day. We have about 50 schools in the area all participating, having the kids get active that day, emulating sports that will be part of the Pan Am and Para-Pan Games. We are featuring Dalewood School as one of the main schools. The entire school, the entire day is dedicated to Pan Am. So we're pretty excited about that. June 13th, that's when we're really going to gear up all the television promotion on CBC. June 13th will be a live 4-hour telecast in which they'll be showing live an event that's in the Pan Am Games, but they'll also be featuring some of the communities that are hosting Pan Am events. They will also be visiting other cities outside the province to talk about the importance of the Pan Am Games as a huge lead up to the Rio Olympics in 2016. June 21st is a huge day for us in Hamilton. We will have the torch arriving early in the morning. It will touch down on every community. It is going to Burlington, coinciding with the Sound of Music, so that's going to be spectacular. We'll have 2 big events during the day, one at Gage Park at 2 o'clock as part of Aboriginal Day, and in the evening we'll have a waterfront celebration at 7 o'clock. June 22nd, the torch departs from the Pan Am CIBC Soccer Stadium. Opening ceremonies, you probably know, July 10th, Cirque du Soleil. They expect a sellout crowd. Will be a spectacular event at the Rogers Center. July 11th, big day, 4 games in Hamilton, 2 starting in the morning, early afternoon, later in the afternoon, early evening. That will be the real test because that's the start of the games. July 12th till the end, there will be 2 games every day, excluding the final day. July 26th is the gold medal match for the men, and that will be the final event before the closing ceremonies. So I often say, compare it to the Olympics. I hope it's like Sidney Crosby scoring the winning goal for Canada as we lead in to the final. How great would that be? That Hamilton is really the focal point as the games conclude, followed by the closing ceremonies. Throughout the games, and I'll provide it to the clerk, we have 3 signature events. They're called Kick It Up. We've partnered with Hamilton Folk Arts, the Downtown BIA, and Tim Podisic from Supercrawl. We're going to host 3 spectacular festivals, kicking off at Gage Park, then downtown, and then we move to the waterfront. We also have a number of other partners, Ignite partners, all running events at the same time. We're quite happy to announce that as part of All Things Pan Am, we had about 50 applications, all qualified and eligible. So not only are we hosting Pan Am events, neighborhoods, communities, non-for-profit, charitable groups are also celebrating the games, leading up to the games and during the games period. During the festivals, of course, we're going to have entertainment, activation. Some of you have probably been to major games. We're also going to have a big viewing area. So you can come down and watch the games while they're telecasted. If you're not down at the stadium, catch some entertainment. We're also going to have a lot of activation. We're going to have a youth soccer tournament. Keenan Loomis is involved. We're going to have a corporate challenge. They're going to play street soccer. We're also hosting the National Homeless Championships. We're going to have homeless people come from across this country competing for the right to go to the World Cup of Homeless Soccer, which we're very excited about. These are the people's games, so we've tried to engage all cultures, all genders, but also give the opportunities to the social disadvantaged to also get a taste of what the Pan Am Games are all about. On the closing night, we'll have the name act, and we'll have fireworks down at the waterfront to have our own closing celebration. Soccer will certainly be the highlight. I think I mentioned before, 1/3 of all the ticketing. Practice venues in Burlington, along with 3 Catholic high schools. We're getting a lot of engagement, a lot of excitement. We're counting down the days. We can't wait to host what we think will be highly successful. Something we've never seen in our city. We talk about the World Cycling. It was over a short period of time. This is 16 days of continuous, we call it on the field and off the field action. So it's going to be a lot of fun, and the community has certainly embraced it, both from Burlington and from Hamilton, to make this something that I think we're all going to be extremely proud of. Okay? I don't know if there's any questions. I know that's a lot of detail. There's a lot of moving parts and a lot of people involved, but
And you're not going to have a voice at the end of it all.
no,
so.
I get dry when I talk as is, but no, it's really getting
It's
exciting.
awesome.
It's-
Councillor Craven,
It's
please.
getting busy.
It's very exciting, but I have 2 quick questions for you. You mentioned a May 9th joint soccer event. What is that?
There's a provincial pre-season event that's being hosted through Hamilton District, and a number of teams are competing from across the province. But what they've done to make it special is they've themed it Pan Am. They've got 2 national team members coming. We're going to have children wearing replica shirts of the teams competing at Pan Am. They're going to be carrying the flags, and we hope to get some media attention. Again, it's an opportunity to build the excitement around the games.
Do you know if the Burlington Youth Soccer Club is
I
involved?
believe they are.
Second question, you mentioned closing night fireworks. What night is closing night?
July 26th.
So will those fireworks be in the day?
Yes, they are. They're down at the waterfront.
Period.
I believe we're going to have a barge off of Bayfront Park.
So they'd be visible from the Burlington side?
Yes. Yeah. We're working with McKeel Marine. They've provided the barge. Great contribution for the closing ceremonies, and we'll have fireworks out on the water.
Thank you.
Okay, maybe Burlington Golf and Country Club could do something with it because they're going to be right across from
I
it.
was thinking more about selling tickets from my backyard.
Absolutely. Yes, especially your backyard.
I will say all these events, excluding the Pan Am Games themselves, are all free, totally accessible.
Wonderful.
I say it all the time, probably should have said in my presentation, I think what's spectacular, Myself and John Gibson met with TO 2015. They wanted to market this at the $50 range. We said with 16 continuous days, 32 soccer matches, we got to make it affordable. Ticket prices are $20. For seniors and youth, all tickets are $10. That's for 2 matches. I can't imagine seeing Argentina and Brazil and Canada and Colombia for a $10 ticket price, and it includes all public transit, including the GO train, which will be free for any volunteer with accreditation or anybody with a ticket. So that is a great deal for anyone who wants to see international soccer. I imagine when those same 2 teams on the men's side play at the Olympics, ticket prices could be upwards of $1,000. And you're seeing the same 2 teams vying for a gold medal. So it's great, it's accessible, it's a chance for people that can come out, they can afford it. And we're also working with the Toronto Community Foundation and Hamilton Community Foundation, and I'll mention this as well. We're gonna have tickets available for any charitable organization for underprivileged youth. These are not free tickets. Donations were made by entrepreneurs and philanthropists to support the games, in which tickets will be available. You can apply online at the Toronto Community Foundation. There'll be, I won't say plenty, there'll be a lot of tickets available for underprivileged groups to attend the games at no cost, just by applying online. That went live yesterday morning at 9 o'clock.
Okay, so that's available now.
That's available right now.
Okay, anything else, Rick? Okay.
It is actually their home page.
Okay, Mayor Eisenberger?
So just to thank Greg and his team for all their great work. You know, this is going to be a spectacular event, and his last point, which is really critical, is that this is open to everybody. Soccer is the biggest part of the whole Pan Am experience. Not that all the other venues aren't important and won't get activity, but or generate interest. But the soccer piece is going to be a really big draw for everyone in our broader community. So I encourage, you know, the volunteers have been numerous. Actually, people have been coming out of the woodwork to volunteer and participate in some way or another, including translation services from a lot of folks in our Spanish community, stepping forward and being translators and for all the folks that are coming here. But second to that, and I think you know Neil might want to speak to that a little bit, is that we're also looking to this as an economic development opportunity. So a lot of folks are coming from different parts of the world, business people that have means and resources, and are potentially also looking for places to either expand or grow their business. So I think that's something that maybe, Neil, you want to touch on a little bit, because beyond our great kind of audience participation and the great community participation, there are some really targeted, specific things that we ought to talk about in terms of Burlington, Hamilton, making sure that we're seizing the opportunities of all those good folks coming here. So, Neil, do you want to touch on that?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, as part of our foreign direct investment strategy, we're targeting specifically where we've had activities, Brazil, Mexico, and some of the other Latin American states. So we have a number of them have investments in this community, so we are actively recruiting them and having them come up for the Pan Am Games.
Okay, excellent.
So that's a really important piece for Hamilton, is not only to realize the great sporting event that it's going to be, but realize any future economic development potential that comes out of this. I'm sure Burlington's probably doing the same. And if there's any kind of partnering opportunity in this short window of time, I think that would be a good opportunity to actually have both economic development departments actually sit down and talk about you know, how do we share that resource, because we are one economy. We're not necessarily separate and apart only by jurisdiction and governance, but beyond that, we're part of this kind of entire Niagara region, Hamilton GTA economy. So I think it's critically important that we share the opportunity of getting benefit out of that. In some areas, the benefit will accrue to others, and in other areas, it'll accrue to Hamilton based on what we've got going here. So I'm really looking forward to sharing that opportunity with our collective communities here.
Okay, thank you. And I have just a couple of questions, if I can throw the chair over to Rick. Greg, the practice games, soccer practice games that are going to be at Kern, City Park, right? City View Park. Will there be a schedule available that I'm sure a lot of residents are going to be interested in going out and watching the practice games? Will we have any way of knowing when that's going to happen?
So,
Or we just camp out?
so unfortunately, the practices are closed to the public. So that facility at City Youth Park will strictly be used for practice for some of the teams, and it will not be open to the public. So I don't believe there's going to be any exhibition games there.
Okay.
It is simply a practice facility that will not be accessible, unfortunately.
And so how are they going to stop people from,
I'm sure they'll have security
Right.
that will do that, but
Yeah.
Greg would know more than I do.
You have
Okay.
security and volunteers that will say, without accreditation, you won't be available on site. Appreciating teams strategically are planning to play their next game, and always concerned that there's Bill Belichick's out there that might be watching or spying during practice. You know, our beloved Tiger Cats have been through that with, I think it was the Bombers. So that's the reason for closed practice.
okay. All right, thank you. That's good to know because I will now anticipate the phone calls to my office. And we'll have to watch the church on the adjoining property with the flat roof to see how many people are up there watching.
We've contacted the church, by the way.
Oh, good. Have you, Bethel? Yeah, okay. All right, appreciate that. And then my last question, Greg, is just opportunity for counselors to be involved in the events, the ceremonies. Are you going to let us know when that's going to be available so we get it in our calendars?
Yeah, we indicated we'll have a detailed schedule of all the events, and we'll provide the provisions for counselors and the mayor, of course,
Okay.
for attendance at the games and the various events around the games, including the investment strategy.
All right, when will that be available?
I'm going to say we'll probably be in position in the next 2 to 4 weeks.
Perfect, okay. So before the end of June or the end of
Well
May?
in advance.
Well in advance, okay.
If you could share those with our city clerk as well,
Yep.
because we'd be interested in letting residents know of the opportunities that are in Hamilton as well.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely, excellent. Okay, I'll take the chair back. Any other comments, questions around the table? All right, so we'll just receive this item then. Mayor Eisenberger and Councillor Craven, on that, all in favor? That's carried. Moving on to 6.5, an update on Randall Reef. Well, welcome, Mark.
Thank you, chairs and
All right.
committee.
All right, does everyone know Mark? Everyone's met Mark before? Mark
I'm
Bainbridge?
not sure I've met everybody, but I'm Mark Bainbridge. I work for the Hamilton Water Division and have had the privilege of participating on the Randall Reef Executive Committee with Chris Murray and the rest of the partners on the project. And so I'm here to provide a quick update on the Randall Reef project.
Excellent.
As you know, certainly Randall Reef, our goal is to eliminate contact with the environment from the contamination that is located in off the shore of Pier 15, the PAHs that are in the sediment, and it's a cap and contain strategy. So we're basically busy implementing the cap and contain strategy. As you'll be aware, in 2014 we went out to release the first tender. So this is a 3-stage process. Stage 1 being the construction of the metal box that would be planted into the bed of the harbor. Stage 2 would be dredging. Stage 3 would be capping. And now there's even a small step in front of that to repair Pier 15, which was always part of the 3-stage strategy, but it has been moved out in front and to be managed by the Port Authority. So as a result of 2014's tendering approach and the non-award, as a result of the costs coming in 50% over the original budget for the Stage 1 part only, we were busy in 2014 consulting with industry, and I think you've heard that quick update in your last meeting. We got a lot of ideas and comments from industry in order to reformulate that package and that plan to bring it within the budgeted amounts. That design has been amended, so we have completed the design work led by Environment Canada, and so the design engineer that's been hired on the project has made amendments to that design to shrink the size of the containment cell, to change the angles on the containment cell, essentially in an attempt to improve the constructability. That is clearly a message we heard from industry. In addition, there's been some changes to the participation of the Port Authority. They will be taking the Pier 15 work over, managing that under their own forces, basically with the intent to gain efficiencies and save costs on that piece of the project. U.S. Steel will now support fabrication of steel, not just supply of steel. And the two municipalities have advanced some cash flow in order to make this amended plan feasible. So the design is now complete, and we're on to the second objective that we started in 2015 to get the legal agreements amended, which reflect the change in details and the change in participation between the partners that were affected. Largely, the province of Ontario was not affected. They issued a letter of understanding to solidify their continued participation. All of the other parties had to go through an amending agreement process. And at this time, we have all of those amending agreements signed up for, except for one. So there's one outstanding. At the time that last one is signed over, Environment Canada will apply their signature to all of the partnership agreements, which will signal the start of an approach to retendering that stage one work, as well as the procurement of steel. Environment Canada will be issuing the order for steel very shortly after they receive all the partnership signatures. Then we'll be going into the tendering and soliciting bids, and we'll see certainly what the response of industry is. And the hope is that we've done enough due diligence to have a plan in place that will solicit favorable bids within budget that we can award. That process is looking like a timeline from May till July. So we'll be looking at hiring a construction engineer, tendering the Pier 15 work through the Port Authority, and the tender work for stage one. Hopefully to start in May, and an award is expected in July or by the end of July at this point in time in the current schedule. So basically,
This year.
yes. So in-water work for Pier 15 is targeted for the fall. Although there is an opportunity to start the ECF this year, it is not expected that the contractor would want to do that going into the winter, but they would start in the spring. That's the plan right now. And so essentially the update is we're still on track for the amended plan, still on track to have in-water work on Pier 15 start this year, and most likely we'll see the main ECF started in 2016.
Any questions? Yeah, Rick, go ahead, please.
The nature of the construction of the cell, I think you describe it as a cell. In my mind, I see major steel and pounding. How would people on the Burlington side experience this construction?
So from a noise perspective, certainly there'll be a monitoring framework put around all kinds of environmental conditions. There's a bylaw in the city of Hamilton that will have to be looked at and maintained for the hours of work and the noise levels that will be present on site. And so Environment Canada and the team has started looking at what requirements, and they've been looking at the bylaws to make sure that the contractors are abiding by those.
Because as we know from our experience with Sarcoa, the sound goes right across the bays.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they will be pile driving sheet steel into the bed of the harbor. There will be noise, and there's a framework around managing that noise. The bylaw being the main instrument, I think, right now that I'm aware of.
I think a big part of this is simply a matter of public education. So as we get closer, I think it's important for your office and my office to get the word out to the community, and particularly on the Aldershot side, about what's happening, so that there's not a sense of alarm or overreaction. We need to educate the public about what's happening.
Thank you.
Okay, and I have a couple questions, so over to you. Mark, can we talk about time frame, just so it's clear in my mind? I understand we're going out for retendering and hiring in May to July, but the actual, what is our goal in terms of when we'll actually start the project, and what is the duration of it? Because I think, to speak to Rick's concern, certainly I think our residents are going to want to know, how long is this going to take? Is the phasing going to be back to back to back? Is there going to be gaps in between? Could you speak to that, please?
Yeah, certainly. The tender process is just for phase one. We'll be working on the phase two and phase three design process in parallel with that. Pier 15 being a smaller package of work is expected to start and finish in 2015. The larger ECF starting in the spring, likely for 2016. And it is an 8 to 9 year project, so that will extend to the year 2023. Phase one, though, is the main heavy steel pile driving and construction of the containment facility, which will only be on the front end. So stage one is not going to be 8 to 9 years long. We will transition from phase one to dredging, which is largely going to be much quieter, I would expect, hydraulically moving sediment into the containment and then capping to round out that 8 to 9 year window of time.
Okay, and that's a relief. So the worst part of the noise will be up front, but then the work that'll be done on Pier 15, that will be simultaneous. That'll be happening as the second phase, or what's the timing on
Right
that?
now, it looks as if by the schedule, the Pier 15 work is small enough to be contained within the 2015 fall season. And so it will, unless we run into delays or there's a problem completing it, it will not likely overlap with the main ECF construction. In fact, to some degree, work has to be done to stabilize that pier before a lot of activity and is done out front of it in the water.
Okay, all right, thank you. And my last question is around the timing in terms of when the job will be done. So is there a thought of overtime? Will there be nighttime work going on, or is it strictly during the day?
No,
or is
I
it too
think-
soon to tell?
Yeah, I think it is a little bit too soon to tell. I think we're planning a regular operation within the timelines that we've prescribed right now. The bylaw has hours of appropriate noise and construction that we would have to observe.
Okay.
But if we wanted to accelerate, I guess that's one option. We could come back to table if we wanted to increase the rate of production and progress.
Okay, all right, thank you for that. I'll take the chair back. Any other comments, questions? All right.
Other than it's about time.
Yeah.
We're very, very pleased when this process actually gets
Yes.
underway, so it's a
Yes.
long time coming.
I was waiting for someone to say something about that, because it's been, what has it been now, 12 years, 15 years? It's been an awfully
Yeah,
long
it's
time,
good.
so. yeah.
So an awful lot of work has gone into this, in fact. So it's not for lack of trying. In fact, it's been complicated, and it's a big project. There's a lot of environmental contamination, and I think if we, getting it done right has always been the issue, and having it properly funded. So participation from Halton and Burlington was key to actually making it move. Everybody taking a share of the overall cost, and the Port Authority has been quite active. Going back to my days at the Port Authority, we were kind of moving this along, and it's taken a long time, but getting it right is critically important. I think we're at that point now. So now it's really a matter of implementing and keeping the ball rolling, so to speak. It really has a great opportunity to kind of fix one of the last great major issues for our harbor beyond the sewage issues that we're currently working on. So, the success story from the remedial action plan basis, for what we've all been involved in over the years, is really, really quite tremendous. I think at some point we have to craft that story and really start talking about how far this harbor has come. It is a dramatic and very successful kind of transition from that contaminated water to now an area that has fish and wildlife starting to prosper again. So that's a really good news story. This is really essentially the final piece that really kind of puts us into a frame. We've done as much as we can. What we need to do from here on in is stop throwing stuff into it. That's the bigger challenge, and I think we're making some great progress on that as well. So it's just such a great news story. It warms my heart, even though it's taking long. We're now
We'll have a real
finally.
celebration when it gets underway.
Exactly,
Yeah, I was
exactly.
gonna say
And
we're
there.
standing
So
up.
yeah, maybe
Yeah.
a kickoff celebration. I don't know what that looks like. You gonna swim in the water?
Sure, you can.
I'm right behind you. I'm right behind you. You first.
All right, thank you both mayors, excellent comments. Motion to receive, Mayor Eisenberger, Mayor Goldring, all in favor? And we'll move on to item 6.6, respecting the regional transit connections. And this was my item that I had asked we put on, so I'll turn the chair over. And, you know, we are a region when we talk about it. I mean, you know, in terms of the way legally we're set up. But as far as the transit connections, Waterdown has some challenges. I've been working with our transit director to address those issues. We're getting very close. We've got some good plans in place. And as you know, right now, the bus, we have one bus, and it goes down to the Aldershot GO station, and then there is some connectivity with Burlington happening there. I didn't know if there was anything that you folks could update us on, or if we need to have a motion or direction to staff to have our transit directors work together at what some possible, you know, solutions could be.
Mayor Eisenberger.
So, yeah, on the same vein, there's a real good reason, I think, for our transit people and maybe the city managers and others to get together and have a talk about how do we better integrate transit between Burlington and Hamilton globally. You know, beyond, I mean, Waterdown is important. That's not to dismiss that.
It's the center of the universe.
In the mind of some, yes. I say it's a lovely place to be, as my daughter loves being in Waterdown, and making sure that we have kind of a broader interconnecting process is good for everyone. So we were talking earlier about how many people actually migrate between Hamilton and Burlington and Hamilton. 26,000 coming from Hamilton, working in Burlington, and about 9,000 coming our way, is our understanding. That, you know, if we can craft strategies in terms of having that movement happen beyond vehicle and provide different options for people, I think that's a very positive step. So I would recommend, if we need a motion to do that, to have our directors of transit and maybe the city managers and the mayors or councillors that are interested kind of sit down and have a discussion about how can we improve the transit experience for everyone. You're quite right. It's a regional. We're all part of one economy. How we interconnect that economy, I think, is important. How that happens in terms of transit technology, don't ask me. I'm not a transit guy, but I think we have good people on both sides of the equation that can sit down and have a look at what makes sense. So I'm going to support having that kind of meeting of the minds, and let's get the ball rolling, and let's see where we can add value in terms of transit.
I'm just going to say, it makes a lot of sense for all the reasons cited. We do have some interconnectivity right now. We have HSR going into Burlington on the beach strip, and then we have our Route 1 and 101 going to downtown Hamilton from Burlington. And then also, I wasn't aware until recently of the connection from Waterdown to the Aldershot GO station.
It's through a transfer, though. It's not a bus that goes in. Would they have to transfer from the HSR bus to the Burlington bus?
Right.
Is my understanding.
At Aldershot GO.
At Aldershot GO.
But, you know, there's other connectivity we can look at. Fred and I met before, and I pulled out my smartphone with my transit app, and I looked, if we want to go from here to downtown Burlington, we have to transfer.
Yes.
And the trip is an hour or 58 minutes to an hour and 10 minutes, depending on how you take it, and we have to transfer. And it's a 15-minute ride in the car.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's lots of merit in looking at that route, I would say for sure, between the downtown hubs of both communities, and certainly from a point of view of our festivals and events on the waterfront in the summertime. Certainly be a great opportunity to give Hamilton residents an opportunity to bus into Burlington more conveniently for the Sound and Music Festival and the Rib Fest and other events, but also vice versa, because you have some great events on your waterfront. And certainly with we're probably not going to get it together for the Pan Am games and Pan Am events, but it makes all sorts of sense. And we have so many employers in Burlington that have 85–90% of their employees come from Hamilton. And some of them are forced to drive a car because they don't have an option. So there's all sorts of possibilities that we can look at.
So Mayor Eisenberger, if I understand it, you're making a motion that we ask our directors of transit to host a meeting with the applicable elected representatives to talk about how we can do more and do better.
Correct.
And that's seconded by Mayor Golder.
Absolutely.
Terrific.
Any further comments on that?
We need our city managers to connect into that.
Sure, if I can, through your chairman, I would keep this then on the agenda and
have us report at your next meeting so you can see what progress we're making.
Great.
I would only offer a comment that we did have a small success in Aldershot. We pursued the issue of whether we could get the HSR bus on Waterdown Road to actually stop and pick up Burlington residents in North Aldershot. And it took a long time, but actually we did get that achieved. So that's a good news item. So we can make progress again. So all in favor of that item?
All
And
right.
that is carried.
All right.
Thank you. Back to you, Madam Chair.
Yes, thank you. Take the chair back. So item 6.7, respecting Sarcoa and the entertainment noise issue. I'm sure there's some discussion on this somewhere.
Looking for some sort of update, I think.
As he takes the chair, all eyes are on you.
Thank
Can you
you.
provide an update for us, please?
Through you, Madam Chair. Well, since March this year, through Committee of Council, we have a new pilot project that's been approved. It's a joint project with the Hamilton Police Service and municipal law enforcement to enforce noise enforcement after hours. In the old way, our staff would work to 1 o'clock, and then afterwards, Hamilton Police Service would take over noise calls. Noise calls on their differential response system is the lowest of the low, which is a 4 or 5. With the new system, we're riding along with the Hamilton Police. It'll be a dedicated police unit with bylaw that will deal with noise problems as a priority 1, noise problems only, and they'll be working to 5 a.m. in the morning, which means a lot of problems that happen after we go home and the police don't get to it will be responded to. So for Sarcoas and other noise problems in the city, it'll be immediate response and a zero tolerance approach, which we've taken elsewhere in the city, which has been very, very beneficial. So moving forward, we're looking to start at the end of May. We're meeting with the police in the next week to get their special units going. We have our hiring process in place. In the meantime, we already have trained officers to partner with the police until we get our new unit up and running. So that's kind of a nutshell where we're going and where we should be in the next little while.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Appreciate that. And comments?
So second to that, and that's kind of the enforcement side, we're also looking at the entertainment district noise attenuation process, getting examples from other municipalities in terms of how they manage higher density developments and entertainment areas, not like what the waterfront is going to be in the future, or Hess Village or other places. So I think there's really a move afoot to kind of figure out how we encourage the entertainment part of it, which I think is important. We want our entertainment areas to be lively and entertaining, and at the same time respect the folks that are ultimately going to be living there in terms of the new developments that are coming, specifically on Pier 8 and in areas where we already have entertainment districts. How do we attenuate that noise? What kind of strategies do we need to use? What happens in a municipality? So that's a kind of a secondary direction to this in terms of how we're rolling that out. Want to add to that?
And through you, Madam Chair, the survey has gone out this week to our city, the Ontario municipalities, as well as a number of other municipalities that have waterfronts in Canada. So we expect preliminary responses within the next month, so we can start forming our opinion and also forming a strategy to, address these new districts that are coming out.
Okay, excellent. Rick?
Yeah, thanks, Bill. That's very good news. Appreciate all the work you've done on that. When you say there's zero tolerance of the noise bylaw, are you referring to the noise bylaw as measured on the Hamilton side or the Burlington side?
Point of reception. So if a Burlington resident is receiving noise from Hamilton, we will enforce it.
Excellent. So I only have one other question for you. What number can I give my constituents to call at 1 in the morning if there's an issue?
546-4925, which is the Hamilton Police Service, and they will dispatch our unit. Our unit works Thursday, Friday, and Saturday evening up until 5 a.m. That's when the highest number of complaints are happening. And at that point, a Hamilton Police Service vehicle with a bylaw officer accompanying will respond to these complaints, and they will address them accordingly.
So it's 546-4925.
And that's the Hamilton Police Service number.
Excellent. Thank you for your work on that.
All right, thank you. Yes, and I will say when it came to council to be passed, there was discussion obviously on it, but it was positive, it made sense. We have challenges all over our city with noise complaints, and with bylaw being finished at 1 o'clock in the morning, it just made sense to carry it a little further and partner up with police. So thank you,
Good
Bill.
work. You see, this is why we're
Excellent.
partners.
Well, exactly, yes, which is why we need to have these meetings, which is terrific. So motion to receive then, Mayor Goldring and Councillor Craven, all in favor? That's carried. And the last item, I guess, that we have on the agenda is 6.8, respecting the Waterdown Road expansion, if there's an update on where we are with the discussions on that. Because I have my residents asking me, is there anybody who can update on that? I'm hoping you folks can.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so as you know, the provincial government has ruled in favor of the plan to expand Waterdown Road. So the plan is to widen the road to 4 lanes of pavement. It will be painted up as 3 lanes, however, initially, until and if the traffic volume justifies the 4 lanes. Currently, our technical staff and your technical staff are meeting to work on the details with regard to what will happen in the next year or 2. In 2015, we are proceeding with the details concerning the remaining land acquisitions and the detailed construction design. So we anticipate that will be completed in 2015. In 2016, we anticipate going through the final approval process on both sides of the border, particularly with regard to your side and the funding, which, as you know, is already agreed to in principle, but Burlington needs assurance that the money is going to be there at the time that we start construction. So we anticipate that all of this will wind up with construction sometime around 2019, maybe a little earlier with the movement of utilities, and major construction would probably going to run into early 2020. But it's certainly all going to happen in the next 5 years. So we anticipate moving straight through right now.
Okay, thank you for that. So the agreements between the 2 municipalities have been signed?
They've all been signed.
Okay.
Hamilton, as we understand it, is collecting those funds, so the question will be simply dovetailing the amounts at the right time.
Right, okay, thank you. And if I can just add to the discussion, you know, part of the concern from Waterdown's perspective is that we will also have Parkside Drive updates happening. They're starting at the end of 2015, will happen 2016. The east-west bypass, which is in partnership with the north-south on Waterdown Road, is going to be starting in 2016, will be happening 2017. And so the entire town of Waterdown is under construction, at least for the next 10 years. But my concern is just, you know, where does that traffic go? Once Waterdown Road is under construction, that's going to be a real challenge, and for the
For us as
residents,
well,
yeah, for you as well. Just how are they going to not only get to Waterdown and from Waterdown, but how are they going to maneuver their way around Waterdown? Certainly staff on our side of the border are well aware of that. And we also have some challenges around, you know, bridges on Dundas Street, that the main bridge right in the core of town over the Grindstone Railway tracks has to be replaced within the next 5 years, which means Dundas will be shut down for a number of months. So you can see we have quite an interesting few years ahead of us. So I do appreciate the update, and that staff are working together on this. I don't want anything to be held up.
There was a meeting recently, as a matter of fact, I believe about 2 weeks ago, of our 2 staffs. So as far as I know, everything is moving along well. We are experiencing a bit of this right now with the reconstruction of Waterdown Road south of the 403. There's this traffic chaos. You're right, it's not pretty. So I guess Highway 6 is getting a little extra use right now.
Yes. Well, in King Road, once the salamanders finish their crossing, and
Oh,
we can
we
open
can't
the road
upset the
again.
salamanders.
No, absolutely not. It closes for 3 to 4 weeks for the salamanders to be able to cross the road
It's important.
and do what they do. Yes, so
Don't want to sell it.
you don't want to harm the salamanders.
Well,
Okay.
the other thing is too,
Yeah.
though, Judy, is that, Councilor Burkett, is that that section of King Road north of the 403 is always going to be restricted to 20K because of the configuration of the road.
Yes.
And we're also planning some construction there to do some maintenance work in the next few years.
Yeah.
It may not provide the alternative that we would like.
Yeah. And just to add to that, as I understand from staff, Mountain Brow Road, which part of it will become part of the bypass, which will be connecting to Burke Street, but the access will no longer be straight through Mountain Brow to King Road. So there will be a bend in the road. It will take it up through Burke Street in order to get back down. to Mountain Brow Road, they will have to go through a couple of streets to get down there. So there will no longer be that straight through access, and that was something that was decided at the OMB. So, you know, I think that may alleviate some of the headaches for you folks on King Road. Any further questions, discussion? No? Okay, well, stay tuned.
Do we have an opportunity for new business at this point?
Yes,
On the agenda?
yes, I
Or
think
is
because
it-
the
is
next
another
thing,
point?
Yeah, it's, new business is usually handled under section 10 of the agenda, so.
Okay.
we'll be there in a couple of minutes. So moved by Councillor Craven, seconded by Mayor Eisenberger to receive 6.8. And we'll move on now. Respecting 2015 meeting schedule, I want to have some discussion on that. I think that, you know, probably regular meetings would be good, but we do have the summer to deal with, so I'll open it up to what folks are on for here. Go ahead.
So 3 times a year or thereabouts, I think, you know, would be, I think, good from my perspective. I mean, you know, I don't think we're going to have very deep, full agendas, so I don't know that monthly meetings are in order, but 3 or 4 times a year would make sense for me, depending on, you know, I mean, I don't want to meet just for the sake of meeting. There's always interaction going on, so the chairs can get together and see if there's enough enough meat to put on the table for us to have a good chew on. But if not, then you know, we'll wait till we do have. So, from my perspective, 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
I would agree 3 are fine. If we can get 3 a year, that's great. The challenge, Mr. Mayor, has been that if we wait too long to decide on a date, we can't get a date. And our clerks have been losing a lot of sleep over that. So I would suggest that if we go with your theory of 3 a year, one being in winter, one being in late spring, and one being in the fall, and ask our clerks to go ahead and set those dates as soon as possible.
Absolutely. Let's cement the dates in so that we don't leave it to chance. I agree with that.
Yeah, so in agreement with that, then we'll leave it to clerks, and going forward, we won't be meeting over the summer. We do have the Economic Summit in June,
Right.
but I would suggest a fall and then a winter, which is not going to preclude us from having the meetings regarding the regional transit, because I think that's something that, you know, we can kind of carry on almost as a subcommittee to then have something tangible to bring back to the table. Does that sound reasonable to everybody?
Yeah, very reasonable.
Okay, all right, good. So there's our meeting dates.
We will have an outstanding business list developed for this.
I think we have one already. Should be at the end
Didn't see one.
Should be at the end of your.
I took a look at the work from the previous year. I couldn't find any outstanding businesses for the committee. We can surely start one. That's not a problem at all.
Oh, great, thanks.
And thank you for raising that, because if we don't have one, I thought we did, but yes, Christopher, you know, and Danielle, I think we absolutely need to have one, and we have items that we can put on that at this point. Any motions to be put forward, other than the one we did? Okay, no notices of motion, general information, other business.
Thank you very much. Last term, we did talk about LaSalle Park a little bit, and we didn't get very far with that. And Chris, I believe that the lease comes due 2022, so it's coming up. And I believe we should take a look at this term. And in my view, we need to figure out, start getting information together, start looking at the issue, start letting it percolate and educating people on where we are. And you know, potentially with the desire to, you know, solve the issue at some point. It doesn't have to be tomorrow or next year or the year after, but at some point. I think we need to get the information together to really understand what the issues are, understand the history. So what I would do is put forward a motion that we ask our city managers to work on this together and to report back to the committee, I would say in the fall, with some background information on the issue and you know, potentially some recommendations as to how we deal with the issue going forward.
I'll second that.
Okay, all right, so that, I think that's excellent. So now the motion's on the table, do you want to speak to it?
I do.
Okay.
So, you know what, this has been a long-standing issue. You know, it's an issue that, in my mind, hasn't always made a whole lot of sense in terms of, you know, historically, I think, I mean, there's good rationale behind this, but we're way past those issues now. You know, Burlington's built up around it, and it's just a little pocket of kind of unusual policy that doesn't necessarily, it kind of defies logic as to why that's still ongoing. But I'd like to get, as Rick has asked for, get the staff to kind of put together some information in terms of what is it costing the city, what kind of resources is Burlington putting into this. What's the historical kind of investment been in terms of, and I'm hoping you don't burn the pavilion down again. wasn't you, but it only happened 3 times, I think, yeah, notwithstanding. I think there's a real strong rationale as to, what information can we gather, how can we make sense out of, next steps. Is there an intrinsic value there for the city or for Burlington? Are there offsets? All of that, I think we'd actually wrap our heads around and then come back here and have that discussion about how do we go to next steps. Because at some point, it doesn't make sense to kind of continue on with this. Some will make some political hay out of this, I imagine, but at the end of the day, it's in Burlington. No other way to kind of characterize that. If we had a chunk of land that Burlington owned here in Hamilton, we'd be asking kind of the same thing. And over the long run, it may very well be that we were able to offload an expense that we don't need to continue to bear. So I'm really open to looking at this and see if we can make sense of this, and if we can make it happen before, this other 22 date. We don't have to wait for that. If it makes sense, let's do it now.
Okay, and thank you, because I would agree with it being 2022, let's address it now. Any other comments?
Excellent, thank you all very much. And
Okay.
constituents of Aldershot will be encouraged by knowing there may be clarity somewhere on this issue.
Yes.
Yeah, don't get them too excited though.
Turn it down again.
So, all in favor of that motion, that is carried, and Christopher, you'll put that on the outstanding business list and the ongoing work, and we'll have it on every agenda going forward.
Sounds great.
Okay, Danielle, all right, thank you very much. No further items?
Could I just, one suggestion on this issue? I mean, if there's information that we can gather and that can be gathered sooner rather than later, I don't know that we need to wait 4 months to actually bring that to the table somewhere.
Sure.
So there may be an opportunity to have an informal meet on that issue. I don't want the staff kind of leaving here and saying, well, we've got 4 months to gather this information. I'd rather get at it sooner rather than later.
Yep.
And then if there's something that comes out of that, we can always bring it to the committee with some direction.
Great.
But let's not wait 4 months to gather this info.
That makes sense. All right, and a motion, Rick, go ahead.
He's got it?
Yep.
You got it? Heck, Deb has got it. All right. Good to hear.
2 issues, Madam Chair, that we may wish to put on our parking lot, as you suggested earlier, the list of things to think about in the future. One is Kerncliffe Heights, which some of you may know. Kerncliffe Heights is the proposed new subdivision adjacent to Kearns Road in Burlington and Dundas Street. And the proposal there is for, as I understand it, up to 700 new homes that would border on Kearns Road, opposite the City View Park. That creates a number of logistical issues for the Burlington side, and we would simply like to keep that on the table for discussion. I understand at this point Hamilton has asked the developer for studies, and that's great. And I've been in touch with the planner, and that's good, but this may be something we're going to need to talk about together. And secondly, I would like to continue to place on the agenda the issue of Hamilton's appointment to the Port Authority. As I understand it from our previous discussions, Hamilton is supposed to discuss with Burlington, the citizen appointee to the Port Authority. That has not always taken place in the past. I think we've agreed in principle that we need to do more and better when it comes to that appointment. Burlington has a keen interest in getting somebody on the Port Authority who will champion Burlington's interest with regard to the water lots on the Burlington side. So I'll be perfectly candid with you about that. We have an agenda and we'd like to advance it.
All right, and we've had that discussion before, and we don't have any council representatives on the Port Authority, but we certainly do have the citizen. And I wasn't aware that it was supposed to be in collaboration and discussion with Burlington on that. So Christopher, let's put that on the parking lot. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, so we just appointed someone to the Port Authority a week and a half ago. I didn't realize it was a collaborative effort between Burlington and Hamilton. So we've made the appointment already. It's passed and approved. So I don't want to lead you astray here that we're going to have a different kind of discussion here, because I don't know that we can, that we should or could undo this one. Although, the water lot issue is one that we should talk about.
I appreciate that, Mr. Mayor, but the point is, when we started having these meetings several years ago, we raised this question, and it was researched by your staff who concluded that the appointment could not be made without consultation with Burlington. I'm not aware that Burlington was consulted.
Not to my knowledge.
You know what, so we'll revisit that, certainly. I wasn't aware of that, and certainly news to me. If it was on the table before, it should have translated into our kind of selection process. I don't think it ever was an issue that was raised by anyone. So, thanks for raising it. Maybe.
Chris, do you want to?
Through you, Chairman, I mean, Councillor Craven's correct. We certainly did talk about it, and we've talked about there obviously being a dual interest between Hamilton and Burlington in terms of the individual pick. We'll go back and look at just the whole process around it, but I mean, short of that, I mean, I don't disagree with you. I think the fact is that there should have been at least some dialogue taking place. Notwithstanding that, though, I think the individual is Sandy Shaw, and Sandy, we could quite easily get her up to speed in terms of the specific issues of Burlington and how best to move them forward on your behalf. And so